There is a new Securities and Exchange Commission probe and the detailing on that new Elon Musk interview, but also now reports as well about a former whistleblower who had been talking about problems in certain models that the company might have been trying to keep from folks. Joining me in this discussion, Harvey Pitt, Colorado Partners CEO, former Securities and Exchange Commission chairman, and Charlie Gasparino broke this entire story that the whole world continues to talk about as we speak. Welcome to both of you. Harvey, to you first. How big a deal is this right now to Elon Musk? How long are his days measured at this company as things stand?
I think this is a very big deal, and I think it's quite serious. His conduct was certainly highly problematic, and from his subsequent blog posting, it appears that he may have actually conceded that his initial tweet was fraudulent. So I believe that the SEC staff will be looking into a variety of aspects of his conduct, but this is not going away quickly.
And that's what you've been reporting.
Yeah, I mean, if you know, if there's one thing that the SEC knows it has to do, okay? I mean, it could miss the Madoff scandal, which wasn't good, okay? And it barely survived as an intact, law enforcement agency at that point, missing a Ponzi scheme. But it has to, at very least, make sure what companies say, what CEOs say, is accurate, fair, and not and at least represents some sort of a representation of basic facts. When that doesn't happen, the SEC has to come down hard on the individual and the company, because the bar is, you lower the bar too much, then any CEO can say anything about their stock and move the price, even if it's wrong, or even if it's wrong. So right. They're almost in a box that they have to come down on this guy. Now, because what he said, if you read the Times account today, the Times did a long interview. They interviewed Musk. It's all but admitted that they did not have the funding secured, even though he said that, and that moved the stock. So now the question is, if you're the SEC, do you thread the needle on this? Do you hammer a guy that's so existentially attached to a company like Elon Musk is with Tesla, where you take him out of the game, you ban him, or do you find some middle ground? And I think that's kind of what the SEC will be.
Yeah, you touched on it at the very beginning, and it's a crucial point. And Harvey, I just wonder, from your vantage point, I know justice is blind, or ever the SEC alternative to that, but this is a different case. This guy is the company, he's deemed to be the company. Does the SEC change its posture or approach to an investigation, knowing that if it goes too far, obviously to go after propriety and all that is one thing, but it could also torpedo an iconic American name and all the people associated with it?
I think the SEC will be cognizant and sensitive to all of these extrinsic facts. But when push comes to shove, the fact of the matter is this violation, or this apparent violation, is quite serious. I agree completely with Charlie that it has a lot to say to other CEOs and how they behave. And the SEC has not walked away from going after elected officials, congressmen,
that's true.
Judges.
I mean, just think of the precedent they set if they let this pass. I mean, it's remarkable. You could be a CEO of a major publicly traded company and put out something, and it looks like that's what he did, that is materially false on Twitter. Now, Twitter...
But what if they didn't make it materially false? What if someone in Saudi Arabia, or a sovereign fund, or a group there, and said, yeah, we felt, let's say we wanted to work and...
We wanted to work.
And help him out.
That's not funding secured.
I understand. What would it take to get the monkey off his back then?
That someone from Saudi Arabia said, I assured him 100%, forget about due diligence, we are in there.
Okay. Would that be enough, Harvey? Or no one has done that or volunteered that yet, which makes you question whether that is the case. But what would it take to get this off of him?
I'm not sure. That would certainly minimize the potential for fraud. But in terms of getting the monkey off his back, I think first There have to be changes in the procedures that Tesla follows.
Yeah.
There need to be better controls over who says what, and they need somebody else in there who isn't going to engage in tweeting in the middle of the day as perhaps a chief operating officer or some such.
So it's okay for the President of the United States, not the president of a publicly traded company?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and by the way, one other thing. I don't know if what I just said as to getting the monkey off his back could ever be achieved.
By the way, it might not be enough now with these allegations
I'm
that
just saying,
whistleblowers' comments were not getting out.
That's true, but what sovereign wealth fund, I mean, he's talking about the sovereign wealth fund would say, we're going to give you the money sight unseen. We're not going to look under the hood. We're not going to do due diligence, that this thing is done based on word. I don't know if that could actually ever happen. No, I've been covering finance for years. I mean, usually, yes, we're interested. We want to do it.
So let's say he just lied. Let's say he literally lied. We don't know that. Now, Harvey, if it was that and no one comes forward to say that the funds are provided and we told him that, or we're highly confident we could provide it, which he didn't say in his tweet, he made it sound like it was a done deal. That would be, if proven untrue, a lie, and that would be a big deal. And that would be a
falsehood.
So what happens in that event? What does the SEC do if it's proven that someone lied in a tweet?
That's market fraud. There have already been shareholder suits. He'd have shareholder liability. The SEC can sue him and seek to impose civil fines through the courts. And the SEC can also seek officer and director bars, preventing him from being an officer or director of a public company. But
real quick, if he turned that around and said, I interpreted that commitment from them to be a promise, and we both misinterpreted it.
No, I think what the SEC looks at, and Harvey could check me on this, they're not going to get into his head whether he lied or not. Right. They're going to say, was the statement materially false? Okay, and if the statement was, if there was evidence that it's materially false, then you come up with then they're ready to charge him, and they can seek everything up to a ban.
All right, but materially false is a lie.
No, it's not. They don't. They're not going to, because he's going to say, well, I meant this, I meant that, I meant this. They're going to say, we don't care what you meant. Okay. Your statement, the face value of the statement, based on evidence, is materially false.
All right, so he lied or not, and he was materially false on something like that, Harvey. He's out of there, right?
Good chance.
Well, I think he may not be out of there because he's such an iconic figure associated with the company, but he cannot be allowed to continue to do what he did here. This is just something that is too problematic for the marketplace. The other thing I would add to what Charlie said, I always agree with Charlie, and I do here, but the other thing I would add is there's no assurance, even if the Saudis want to take this company private, that the president or that the Congress would approve this type of thing.
CFIUS.
So there are a lot of hurdles here.
CFIUS is the thing that has to check the foreign investment.
It is amazing. It is amazing. All right, guys, thank you both very, very much.